Hey guys, what is up? Chris here with Cohesive Friendship Unit. Just me today. I'm here to do a little bit of theory crafting, a little bit of thought analysis going on here. Something was fishy during the road to PS5. There were a lot of really interesting things, a lot of really cool pillars. I'm talking about, of course, the presentation that Mark Cerny did, where they kind of went toe for toe with Xbox on specs and pulled the curtain back, so to speak. But something kind of didn't sit right with me. One especially long part, it seemed. We're gonna get all into that. But real quick, if you found this video helpful, if you enjoyed this video, please throw us a like. And if you love us, sub us, please. We would really appreciate a subscription from you guys. Okay, so here's the deal, right? Mark Cerny gets up on stage. This is very reminiscent of the PS4 architecture unveiling. He gets up and he's talking hardware, right? He's giving us the cold hard facts. He's giving us the clock speed of the GPU. He's giving us the clock speed of the CPU. He's giving us the compute units in the CPU. He's explaining why things are going the way that they're going, and it's very hardware focused. And then all of a sudden, like record scratch, all of a sudden we take a really hard shift into basically software, a little bit of hardware, but a lot about audio and audio presence, and how the last generation consoles, as in this generation consoles, has really just garbage audio. And he goes off on this whole thing about how immersive and how much presence there's going to be. And earlier in like the Wired interviews, there was a decent emphasis on how there would be hardware accelerated ray tracing, but part of that ray tracing is going to be used in audio. And then he starts showing HRTF field frequencies and charts and heat maps so that they can really immerse you in the audio. And all of this seems like I was just watching this like with my mouth like kind of half open, like what the hell? Like why are we doing this? Why are we going 10 minutes deep on this audio tech? Not gonna say that it's not cool, but a couple personal points. One, this is personal preference. So I mean, I like good sounding headphones. I have nice audio stuff, but I'm not like an audiophile, if that makes any sense. Like, I invest in the nice stuff, but personally, I have not had any problem with last gen audio. And I've also never heard anyone complain about last gen audio, with the exception of literally this presentation. Other than that, he was talking about how the cell processor in the PS3 could theoretically be pushing out better audio than the PS4, that the way the architecture is set up. And I just was like, what? Like, I've never noticed that, and I've never heard anyone really complaining about that or talking about it. And Xbox certainly isn't talking about it, even though they're coming out with very similar boxes. So then it kind of hit me, right? We do some VR coverage on this channel. VR is a point where audio becomes a contention. I want to talk about the Oculus Quest and the Oculus Rift S. Those have these kind of like chintzy audio that gets piped through the headband, basically. And I would say that they're serviceable. I think a lot of people would say that they're serviceable, but then you step it up to something like the Valve Index, or even last generation's Vive Deluxe audio strap, or the Oculus on-ear headphones that came with the consumer version 1, and everyone talks about how those are a world of difference for virtual reality. In addition, they add, maybe add a pair of headphones if you're playing on Quest, or in general that's a much better way to play, because immersion. And yes, I have VR headsets. I've talked about VR plenty. I can say that audio is a huge deal in immersing you in the world, in both good and bad being horror experiences. That sucks when the audio is really good, but sucks in a good way. So like, how are we rounding in this all back? Well, a couple things, right? First, Microsoft doesn't have a VR solution, and they don't seem to have had a VR solution in the works. Like, there's no real rumors about it, right? PlayStation VR, very, very successful. Very successful for VR, the most successful VR headset probably. We'll see how the Quest shakes out, but something to note, the PS5 will be fully backwards compatible with PSVR. So your first gen PSVR headset, it's gonna work with this PlayStation 5 hardware. So here's kind of where I'm rounding in, right? Here's my theory, is that Sony is going to be doing a huge VR push this generation for a number of reasons, this kind of being the key indicator. First, PSVR sold fairly well. And second, it's all backwards compatible, meaning the software is also going to be backwards compatible. I'm not necessarily even concerned about the hardware being backwards compatible, because I'm convinced they're just going to blow it out of the water with PlayStation VR2, because it's not as much of a risk. They kind of know that the first one did well, the second one will probably do maybe even a little bit better. They're not going to be kind of retrofitting PlayStation 3 components to jigsaw together some, VR headset. They're going to be developing some nice hardware. I'm almost guaranteeing that. But so here we have PlayStation VR did well. PlayStation VR, all the software is going to be backwards compatible. That's another reason why there'd be reason to invest in future hardware. And Microsoft doesn't have a presence in VR. Plus this HRTF. So on the Microsoft end, Microsoft does not have a advertised VR solution, at least that we're aware of. This is a way for them to differentiate themselves from Microsoft. This VR compatibility, if you have any interest in VR, even remote interest, I would say right now go the PS5 over Xbox Series X. Why? Because you already have all the PSVR backwards compatibility right out of the gate. Of course, there's always the Quest, but for people who even have a fleeting interest in VR, lean PS5. It's a differentiating thing in continually similar boxes as time goes on. These boxes just keep getting more and more similar, and this is a distinguishing factor. This is the Game Pass of PlayStation at the moment from what we can see. So when they go off on a rant for 10 minutes about these HRTFs and these high audios, they talk about a few things. They talk about how the audio will be at its best when you are wearing headphones, especially early on. And when do you almost always wear headphones? Well, with first gen PSVR, you should definitely be wearing headphones. That's just it, right? It seems like this technology is going to be something that pushes Sony not only deeper into VR, but it's going to be pushing them into VR in a way that even the competing VR headsets don't entirely have a solution for. We talked about the Valve Index, we talked about the first gen Oculus, and those are just hardware things. Those are just headphones that you put on your head that sound good. There's no software solution to really accelerate. The headphones can put out the sound, but if the sound software mixing isn't there, it's not going to be as good. I talked about horror games, that's when something like sound mixing and audio really matters. And Sony looks like has a baked in solution ready to go, and that could put them way in the lead in VR if they come out with a PS5, already have all this good PSVR software, and the PSVR2 is much better. I mean, so at this point, right, we've already seen tracking without base stations. Inside out tracking has been done several times over. It's been done by HTC with the Vive Cosmos. It's been done with Oculus with the Oculus Quest and the Oculus Rift S. And it's been done by multiple companies, multiple iterations. Windows mixed reality headsets, it's also been done for. So the technology can be iterated on. Sony could definitely develop an inside-out headset, which would have much better tracking. It would have 360-degree tracking, unlike the original PSVR. Plus, with this super crispy audio solution, it could be a real game changer. Also, just the specs of these two consoles. These could run Half-Life Alyx. It would not surprise me if PSVR 2 or even the launch PS5, if they have some kind of Half-Life Alyx port locked and ready to go for the launch of the console, if only because I'm sure they're looking for, they being Valve, are looking to get this game into as many people's hands as possible because they want to sell copies. PlayStation VR is a great way to sell copies of your game because it's the biggest install base, and the hardware of the PS5 could definitely handle Half-Life Alyx. So that, with this crispy audio, I think this is all looking like one of the key distinguishing factors for Sony this generation, much like the last generation, again being the PS4 and Xbox One, is going to be this virtual reality push and this super HRTF crazy investment of software and hardware coming together in a beautiful way. That's going to pay off big in VR. But let me know what you guys think. That's all for me. Catch you next time.